The first light of dawn spilled across the African savanna, brushing the dry grass with a faint golden glow. The air was still cool, but it carried the promise of a day that would soon turn scorching hot. From the horizon, the sun began to climb, a great, burning orb that set the sky aflame with streaks of orange and pink. Somewhere far away, the lonely cry of a fish-eagle pierced the silence, echoing across the open plains. In the distance, a dark, moving mass stirred among the haze of morning light, a herd of Cape buffalo making their slow, deliberate way across the plain. Their silhouettes, broad and heavy, loomed against the shimmering horizon. The earth beneath them trembled faintly with each step, the rhythmic thud of hooves blending into the gentle rustle of dry grass. Among them was a mother, a large buffalo cow, her hide marked with faded scars from battles long past. Her horns curved like crescent moons, weathered and chipped from years of defending herself and her herd. But her most defining feature was not her size, nor her strength. It was the way her deep, dark eyes softened whenever they fell on the small calf walking at her side. The calf, barely a few weeks old, was still finding his place in this vast and unforgiving world. His fur was softer than the coarse hair of the adults, and a lighter brown, almost golden in the morning light. His steps were unsteady, his legs still learning the rhythm of the herd's slow march. Every now and then, he would stumble, catching himself just in time before looking up at his mother for reassurance. And each time, she would lower her head, giving a gentle nudge, her breath warm against his cheek. The herd moved toward a shallow waterhole, a remnant of the rainy season, now reduced to little more than a muddy pool surrounded by cracked earth. Water was scarce at this time of year, and every drop mattered. The dry season had stretched on longer than usual, baking the land, turning grass brittle, and shrinking water sources to a fraction of their former size. For the buffalo, the search for water was not merely a daily routine. It was a matter of survival. Birds fluttered overhead, their wings catching the soft light, while a pair of oxpeckers clung to the mother's back, darting their beaks into her fur in search of ticks. The air was rich with the earthy scent of dust and dried vegetation, tinged with the faint, metallic smell of water ahead. The mother knew this route well. She had walked it countless times through the years. Each time it carried the same risks. Out here, the open plains meant visibility, but it also meant exposure. Predators could spot the herd from miles away. As they neared the waterhole, the calf's pace quickened, eager for a drink. His small hooves kicked up tiny puffs of dust as he trotted forward, glancing back at his mother as if to say, "Hurry, I'm thirsty." She stayed close, her body always positioned between him and the outer edges of the herd. The instinct to protect was as natural to her as breathing. Around them, the herd began to spread out. Some buffalo lowered their heads to drink, their muzzles breaking the water's glassy surface. Others stood guard, eyes scanning the horizon for movement. The soft splashes and the sound of gulping water filled the air, blending with the occasional grunt or snort. The calf stepped into the shallows, the coolness surprising him. He dipped his head, lapping at the muddy water, not caring that it left a dark ring around his muzzle. For a few moments, the world seemed calm. The sun climbed higher, painting the land with brighter colors. Dust motes swirled lazily in the light. A warm breeze swept across the plains, carrying with it the scent of acacia blossoms from somewhere far away. The mother drank deeply, but her eyes never stopped moving. She watched the tree line in the distance, the tall grasses swaying in patterns only the wind could make, or so she hoped. In this land, peace was always fragile. Danger could be invisible one moment and upon you the next. Every muscle in her body was attuned to the subtle shifts in the air, the faintest break in the rhythm of the plains. She turned her head to look at her calf again. He was playing now, pawing at the water, splashing droplets into the air, his short tail flicking in excitement. The sight softened her, a rare moment of innocence in a place where such things seldom lasted. She allowed herself to breathe, to savor this tiny slice of safety. But somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond her field of vision, shadows were already moving. They were silent, patient, and hungry, and soon they would come. The morning sun had risen higher now, scattering the last traces of dawn's coolness. The once gentle light grew sharper, turning each blade of grass into a sliver of gold. Heat began to shimmer off the earth in delicate waves. The herd shifted slowly, their movements unhurried but purposeful, for every step in the wild carried a cost. The mother buffalo stayed close to her calf, her broad frame forming a living wall between him and the unpredictable world. She was not the largest buffalo in the herd, nor the strongest. Some of the bulls towered over her, their horns massive and thick, but when it came to devotion, to the sheer force of will to protect, she was unmatched. She had brought this calf into the world during the harshest stretch of the dry season, a time when even the grass seemed to wither under the relentless sun. The night he was born, the wind had howled through the plains, and the shadows beyond the herd had been alive with movement. She remembered standing over him in the darkness, legs braced, breath ragged, her body aching from labor, and yet ready to face whatever threat came their way. It was in that moment, the first time his wobbly legs lifted him from the dust, that she made an unspoken vow. No predator, no hunger, no hardship would take him while she still drew breath. As the calf now wandered close to the water's edge, nibbling on sparse patches of green, the mother lowered her head to graze beside him. Her movements were measured, deliberate, her ears twitching at every sound, the distant call of a hornbill, the rustle of wind through dry shrubs, the faint splash of another buffalo's hoof in the shallows. Every so often, the calf would glance up at her, his eyes wide and curious, as though seeking silent approval for every little adventure, stepping into deeper water, chasing a grasshopper, testing the taste of a strange plant. And each time, she responded with a soft nudge of her muzzle, or the reassuring brush of her side against his. The bond between mother and calf was not spoken, nor did it need to be. It existed in every subtle gesture, the way she always positioned herself, so he was shielded from open ground, the way her head would snap up at the smallest sign of danger, the way she would slow her pace to match his tiny hesitant steps. The herd began to drift again, spreading out to graze as the morning wore on. The mother guided her calf toward a patch of taller grass, away from the trampled edge of the waterhole. The shade from a lone acacia tree offered a moment's respite from the growing heat. Here, under the tree's sparse canopy, she let her guard down just enough to rest. She folded her legs and lowered herself to the ground, her bulk settling with a soft thud. The calf, thrilled at the chance to be close, nestled against her side, his small head resting on her flank. Her breathing was steady, the rise and fall of her body like the slow rhythm of a lullaby. For a few precious minutes, the world was simple, safe. Her eyes drifted over the horizon again, the open sweep of the plains stretching endlessly in all directions. She knew this land better than any map could describe. The hidden wallows where water lingered longest, the patches of grass that stayed green when the rest turned brittle, the game trails predators favored when they stalked. She knew the seasons, the patterns, the dangers, and she knew, with the certainty born of instinct, that peace was a fleeting luxury here. Still, she allowed herself this moment with her calf. His breathing was slow, his tiny ears twitching in his sleep. She could feel his heart beat through her skin, quick and steady, full of life. It filled her with a fierce, almost painful tenderness. Somewhere in the distance, a faint sound broke the calm, so subtle it could have been mistaken for the whisper of wind. But her ears caught it, her body tensing instinctively. She did not rise, not yet. Instead, her gaze sharpened, scanning the far edges of the grassland. Nothing moved. Not yet. She let out a slow breath, telling herself it was nothing. Still, a thread of unease wove itself into her thoughts. The calf stirred, opening one eye to look up at her. She lowered her head to nuzzle him gently, the tip of her muzzle brushing his cheek. In that instant, it did not matter what lay beyond the horizon. She would face it when it came, with horn, with hoof, with every drop of strength she possessed, because he was hers, and she was his shield. The heat of midday was beginning to press down upon the land. The once cool breeze had grown sluggish, carrying with it the dry, dusty scent of the plains. The herd of buffalo had shifted again, spreading out into smaller clusters to graze, each group still within sight of the others. It was a careful balance, never too far apart, but never so tightly packed that the grass beneath them was stripped bare. The mother buffalo moved slowly among the taller stems, tearing mouthfuls of coarse, sun-bleached blades. The calf trailed beside her, mimicking her every motion, though his teeth were still too small to chew the toughest stalks. He was more interested in pawing the ground, sniffing at insects, occasionally jerking his head up in surprise when a grasshopper leaped away. From a distance, it might have looked like a scene of perfect calm. The steady rhythm of grazing, the lazy flick of tails swatting at persistent flies, the occasional grunt of communication between herd members, but beneath that surface of tranquility, a different rhythm pulsed, one of watchfulness. Every adult buffalo kept their heads low but their eyes alert, scanning the edges of the horizon. It was the mother who noticed it first, a subtle shift in the far-off grass, just beyond the limits of where the breeze would sway it. It was not the slow, aimless movement of wind through vegetation. It was purposeful, careful, like the quiet ripple of water before a crocodile's eyes break the surface. Her ears tilted forward, catching faint sounds the calf could not hear. The soft brushing of bodies against grass, the almost imperceptible crunch of dry stems under padded feet. Predators. Her muscles tightened, the instinctive response of prey that has survived long enough to know the language of the wild. She didn't lift her head all the way. Sudden movements could draw attention. Instead, she shifted slightly, placing herself between her calf and the source of that distant disturbance. The calf, oblivious, wandered a few steps toward a patch of tender shoots near the open plain. The mother followed quickly, nudging him back toward the denser cover of the herd. Her nudge was firm, her low grunt carrying a tone he recognized. He stopped, blinking up at her, sensing the change in her demeanor but not understanding it. In the far distance, a pair of shapes emerged for the briefest moment, silhouettes that melted into the tall grass almost as soon as they appeared. But the mother had seen enough. Tawny bodies, low, deliberate movement, the glint of sunlight on golden eyes. Lions. They were still far, far away, but that was the way of the great cats. They did not rush unless the moment was right. They watched, they tested, they waited for weakness. And here, in the heart of the herd, weakness was hard to find, unless a calf wandered too far from his mother. The mother's heart pounded in her chest, but her face, if a buffalo's face could betray such things, remained calm. She needed to move without panic, to keep the calf close without alerting him to the danger too soon. Panic in the young was dangerous. It made them run without thinking, and running drew predators like blood in water. She guided him with gentle but constant pressure, angling toward the thicker part of the herd where the older cows and strong bulls grazed. There, she knew, he would be safest. But the lions were patient. They would not charge into the center of the herd unless desperation drove them to it. No, they would look for the edges, the outliers, the moments when a mother and calf drifted just a few steps too far from the rest. As the mother settled herself closer to the herd's protective circle, she cast one last glance toward the horizon. The grass was still now, as though nothing had ever moved there. But she knew better. Danger had seen them, and it would be back. The afternoon light slanted lower, draping the savannah in a warm honey-gold glow. Shadows stretched long across the grasslands, and the air hummed with the soft drone of insects. The herd's pace had slowed, each animal conserving energy as the heat ebbed away. It was in these slower hours that calves grew restless, their young legs eager for mischief. The mother buffalo walked with deliberate patience, her eyes scanning both the horizon and the spaces between her herdmates. Her calf stayed close. For a while, it began with a butterfly. A small, delicate creature with wings the color of sunlit amber drifted lazily across their path. The calf froze, his big dark eyes following its erratic flight. It fluttered just beyond his nose, then danced higher, moving toward the open stretch of land between the herd and the shimmering grass beyond. The calf's ears twitched. His tail gave an excited flick. Without hesitation, he took a step, then another, and another. The mother's head lifted at once. She grunted softly, a warning, the same sound she used when telling him not to wander. But the calf either didn't hear or didn't care. His little hooves tapped against the dry earth as he followed the butterfly, his focus entirely consumed by the gentle flicker of its wings. The open space he wandered into felt different. The grass was shorter here, the scent of the herd fainter, and somewhere, far beyond his awareness, the air shifted, not with wind, but with movement. The mother moved quickly now, her bulk deceptively graceful as she closed the gap. Her grunt deepened, carrying an edge he could not ignore. The calf stopped, looking back at her, ears forward in innocent confusion. It was then, in that small pause, that she caught it, a flicker in the grass, a shadow slipping low, almost invisible against the earth. Then another, to the left. The predators had fanned out, using the tall grass as a curtain. She could not see their faces, but she didn't need to. She could feel their attention, sharp, unblinking, fixed on her calf. The butterfly, oblivious to the drama, fluttered upward and vanished into the heat haze. The calf's interest faded with it, and he turned back toward his mother. She stepped forward to meet him, placing her massive head gently against his side to guide him back toward the herd's core. But the ground beneath her seemed to pulse with warning. Every instinct screamed that this was the moment the lions would test them. A brief lapse, a few yards of space from the rest of the herd. She kept her body between him and the grass where the shadows had moved. Her steps quickened, the calf trotting to keep up. The distant bulls stood tall now, their eyes tracking the same points she had marked. The silent alarm had passed through the herd. Somewhere in that swaying expanse, golden eyes narrowed, calculating. The calf didn't know it yet, but with every step he took toward the open, he had been dancing on the edge of death. And death was patient. The savannah was holding its breath. The air felt heavy, thick, as though every sound had been muffled under an unseen hand. Even the insects seemed quieter. The mother buffalo could feel it, that strange, unnatural stillness that came before violence. Her calf grazed a few steps behind her now, nose buried in the grass, oblivious to the danger that crept closer with every heartbeat. She could no longer see the shifting shadows in the tall grass, but she didn't need to. Predators didn't disappear. They waited. The breeze changed direction, and with it came a smell, faint, musky, but unmistakable. Lion. Her ears twitched, and her muscles tightened. Her tail lashed once. The warning passed through her body like a current. Somewhere in the herd, an older bull lifted his head, his nostrils flaring. Another cow froze mid-bite, eyes narrowing toward the same patch of grass the mother had been watching. And then, it happened. A sound like thunder ripped through the air. A lion's roar. It tore the stillness apart, a deep, rolling bellow that seemed to shake the ground beneath them. Birds erupted from the nearby acacia, screaming into the sky. The herd jolted, hooves pounding the earth as dust exploded upward. The calf froze, his tiny legs locking in place, eyes wide with fear. The mother swung round, bellowing loud enough to make him flinch, urging him to move. Now, from the grass, they came. 3 tawny shapes, low and fast, muscles rippling beneath golden fur. Their eyes burned with focus, their paws silent against the earth, despite their size. The first lioness led the charge, her gaze fixed not on the herd, but on the small, trembling calf. The mother lunged forward, placing herself between the calf and the oncoming threat. Her horns lowered, her massive shoulders braced. Every instinct screamed to run, to flee with the herd. But she knew the calf could never outrun a lion. The only way he would live was if she stood her ground. The lions spread out as they closed the distance, 2 angling for her flanks, while the lead lioness drove straight toward her. The air was alive with the pounding of hooves, the growls of predators, and the deep, echoing bellows of the herd. The calf bleated, a high, panicked sound, and pressed against her side. She shifted, keeping him behind her, feeling the heat of his small body against her flank. Her breath came fast now, steam curling from her nostrils. The first impact came like a hammer blow. The lead lioness leaped, claws extended, aiming for her face. The mother swung her horns upward in a violent arc, catching the lioness in the shoulder and hurling her sideways into the dust. But there was no time to celebrate the hit. The second lion lunged at her hindquarters, teeth sinking into flesh. Pain exploded through her leg, but she didn't falter. She spun, trying to gore him, while keeping her body between the attackers and her calf. The calf stumbled backward, eyes wild, watching the dust, the claws, the flashes of teeth. The mother bellowed again, not just in anger, but in a message that carried through the herd. Protect him. And somewhere, she heard the answering rumble of hooves. The bulls were coming. But in the seconds before help arrived, she knew she would have to fight alone. Dust boiled into the air as predator and prey collided in a storm of muscle, horn, claw, and teeth. The world narrowed to a circle of violence around the mother buffalo and her calf. The rest of the savannah vanished, swallowed by the chaos. The lioness she had thrown aside in the first charge was back on her feet, circling, waiting for another opening. The male lion at her flank snarled, foam flecking his jaws as he lunged again for the mother's haunch. His teeth found her skin, ripping through the hide, hot blood spilling down her leg. The pain was white-hot, a searing line that made her vision blur for an instant. But pain was not new to her. She had faced hyenas in the night, fended off lone lions before. She knew that the only answer to pain in the wild was fury. She spun with terrifying speed for an animal her size, her horns cutting a brutal arc through the air. The male barely leaped back in time, claws skidding in the dirt. She drove forward in that same motion, forcing both attackers to retreat a few paces. Behind her, the calf pressed himself against her flank, trembling. His small body quivered with every bellow that tore from her throat, but he didn't try to run. Instinct and her presence kept him rooted to her shadow. The third lion, the lead huntress, made her move from the front. She darted low, trying to slip beneath the mother's head, aiming for the calf's legs. But the mother read the movement like she had read the wind all her life. She lunged forward, slamming her chest into the lioness with such force that it sent both of them crashing sideways. The ground exploded with dust, hooves kicked, claws raked. The lioness twisted, trying to clamp her jaws around the mother's neck, but the curve of her horns blocked the bite. The mother shoved again, using her weight to drive the predator down, but it was 2 against 1 now. The male had recovered and leaped onto her back, claws digging deep into her shoulders. She bellowed in agony, bucking and twisting, trying to throw him off. The second lioness rushed her exposed side, teeth snapping dangerously close to her ribcage. Blood slicked her hide now, dark and hot. Her breaths came in ragged bursts, but her eyes, dark, unyielding, never once left the space where her calf stood. Every blow she took, every wound she suffered, was part of the wall she built between him and death. A shadow swept across the ground. A rumble, deep and growing, shook the air. The bulls had begun their charge. The lions heard it too. Their ears flicked back, their snarls shifting into something sharper, urgency. If they didn't bring the calf down now, their hunt would fail. The lead lioness lunged again, this time for the calf outright. The mother, bleeding and staggering, threw herself into her path. Horns met flesh. The impact sent the lioness spinning away, a high yowl ripping from her throat. The male tore at her back again, but she ignored the pain. She had no time left to think of herself. Only one thing mattered, keeping the calf alive until the herd arrived. And as the pounding of hooves grew louder behind her, she planted her feet in the earth, lowered her head, and prepared for the next strike. The pounding of hooves grew louder. The bulls were close now, but the gap between predator and prey was still measured in heartbeats, and those heartbeats were running out. The mother buffalo stood heaving, blood streaming from her wounds in hot rivulets that painted her dark hide a deeper shade. Her breath came in great, ragged pulls, each exhale steaming in the warm air. The calf pressed against her flank, trembling so hard she could feel it through her bones. She turned her head just enough to see him. In that instant, the rest of the world faded. No lions, no herd, no dust. Only the small, fragile life she had carried, birthed, and sheltered from the first day he drew breath. And in her eyes, there was no panic, only resolve. Her body shifted, blocking him completely from view of the lions. She lowered her head until her muzzle brushed his small ear. No words were spoken. Buffalo have no language of syllables, but the meaning passed between them as surely as if carved into stone. Run. The calf blinked at her, wide-eyed, confused. His legs shuffled in the dust, but didn't move. His world was her, and leaving her side was unthinkable. The male lion roared, closing in again. She swung her horns in a tight, punishing arc, forcing him back. Then she stamped once, hard, the sharp thud, a command as much as a warning. Go. The calf took a hesitant step backward, then another. His ears twitched wildly, his gaze darting from her to the herd beyond. The lions saw the movement. The lead lioness tensed, her muscles coiling. This was her moment. The calf was moving away, but not fast enough. If they could slip past the mother's weakening guard, the hunt would still be theirs. The mother sensed it too. Her tail lashed once, her stance shifting. Every wound screamed at her now, her hind leg threatening to buckle beneath her. But she forced herself forward, directly into their path. She didn't just block them, she charged. It was not a calculated strike. It was a wall of fury and flesh and horn. A tidal surge meant to drag all attention to her and her alone. The impact was bone-shaking, dust flying as she collided with the lioness mid-spring, sending the predator sprawling. The calf's eyes locked on hers for a fleeting instant. She gave one final, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture he could never truly understand now, but one he would remember forever. And then he turned and ran. The herd opened for him, older cows stepping in to flank him, bulls shifting their massive bodies to shield him from view. Behind them, the mother's bellow rose over the thunder of hooves, not a cry of fear, but a command to the wild itself. You will not have him. But with the calf gone, the lions no longer needed to split their focus. 3 predators closed in, and the circle around her began to tighten. Blood streaked her hide, legs shaking, but the mother buffalo refused to move. The calf was safe within the herd now. That was all that mattered. 3 lions circled, eyes locked on her weakening frame. The male lunged first. She met him with a savage twist of her horns, cutting his cheek. The lead lioness darted in from the side, claws raking her ribs, but a shove of her shoulder forced the predator back. Her breath came in ragged bursts, vision narrowing, yet she planted her hooves deep into the soil. A final surge of strength sent one lion sprawling, but the attack left her open. Teeth sank into her haunch, claws tore into her shoulder. She staggered but did not fall. From behind, the thunder of the herd's charge shook the ground. The lions hesitated, then began to retreat. She had held them off long enough. The herd's charge scattered the lions into the tall grass. The danger was gone, but the cost was written in blood on the mother's body. She stood trembling, hide torn and dark with wounds, yet her head remained high. The calf broke through the ring of adults, running to press himself against her side. She lowered her head to nuzzle him, breathing in his scent, as if to fix it in her memory. Her strength was fading fast. The herd closed around them, shielding them from any lingering threat. The calf tried to push her forward, but her legs no longer had the power. Still, she stood, tall, unyielding, so her calf would remember her not in weakness, but as the shield that had kept him alive. The sun sank low, painting the plains in gold. The battle was over. The silence it left behind was heavy, but it was the silence of survival. The last light of the sun stretched across the grasslands, painting the world in molten gold. The heat of the day had faded, replaced by a cool breeze that whispered through the brittle stalks of grass. The mother buffalo stood in the center of the herd, her breath shallow, her body swaying. The calf pressed against her side, refusing to leave. His eyes were wide, shimmering in the dying light. She lowered her head one last time, her muzzle brushing along his cheek. In that touch was everything: pride, love, and a silent farewell. Her legs, heavy and trembling, finally gave way, and she sank to the earth. The calf nudged her, bleating softly, urging her to rise, but she did not move. Her eyes, half-lidded, found the open sky above, a sky painted with streaks of fire and lavender. In its vastness, she seemed to see the shape of clouds curling into horns, the wide sweep of open plains beyond. Her last breath was slow, steady, and then gone. The calf stood over her, small and alone, until the herd closed in around him. One of the older cows stepped forward, nudging him gently, guiding him into the protection of the group. He looked back once, his gaze fixed on the still form lying in the grass. Above, the wind carried a faint warm current, as if the earth itself was whispering her promise. I will always be with you, in the shadow that shields you, in the ground beneath your hooves, in the sky you walk under. And with that, the herd moved on into the deepening night, carrying the next chapter of life forward. As the stars began to bloom above the African plains,